Hi everybody, welcome to the video. As I'm sure most of you already know, Fortuna's been out on PC for Warframe for about 2 weeks now, and I've had a little bit of time to play with it myself because I've made a new PC account. But instead of giving my opinions on Fortuna and all the new added additions with Fortuna in general, I want to talk about one of the most glaring issues that has come up because of this Fortuna release. As I'm sure all of you have experienced the huge content drought prior to Fortuna coming out. And I know there has been a lot of videos already discussing this content drought, but instead of just noticing it and then complaining about it, I want to talk about solutions to the issue and then what we as a player base can do to help improve the problem and hopefully help DE along the way. Now, for about a 6-month period prior to Fortuna coming out, we got almost no content from DE. Now, this is an issue, obviously, but the main or the most scary part of this is as soon as Fortuna came out, we had a huge jump, about 30 to 40,000 concurrent players. But after about 2 weeks or so, even a week, you can even see that player base dropping off. So that means that the players they're not staying with the content. It's not replayable over a long period of time. Now, if DE keeps releasing huge content, huge updates every so often, but the content isn't replayable, we have a really large issue. And this issue can be seen really clearly just with quests. For example, I imagine it probably takes them about a month to put out quests, and we recently saw with Umbra, I think they said they were working on it like 2 months prior to it happening, but as soon as Umbra came out, it was only about a 30 or 40 minute quest, even though it took them 2 months to get it out. And that's not a good ratio between player retention and the amount of time and development resources that the dev team has to put into it. So the solution to this issue is pretty obvious. Instead of just putting out regular content like quests and new weapons and things like that, put out content that's replayable. Obviously, this is easier said than done, and everyone has their own idea of how or what replayable content is to them. But I want to give my perspective on the issue because I happen to be playing Warframe for probably about 4,000 hours combined now, just through talking to everybody, and I think I have a pretty broad perspective of what needs to happen to make content replayable and engaging for the player base. Making content that is both challenging to the player and also rewards the player for overcoming those challenges is how you make content that is replayable. And I am aware that they have already tried to do so, like with Elite Sanctuary Onslaught and the more recent Arbitration Elite Alerts. They're both geared towards that more endgame kind of mindset. However, they're not what they need to be, because both Elite Sanctuary and the Arbitrations didn't have rewards that were rewarding enough for the players, and the challenge wasn't challenging enough for a lot of the endurance players and the endgame players and people that enjoy pushing themselves. But I believe we can get to the point that we need to be just by using a modified version of Elite Sanctuary Onslaught or a modified version of the new Elite Alerts. So I want to go over the challenge portion of this firstly. Now, the new Elite Alerts, they actually scale slower than their regular Endless Mission counterparts, and this was super off-putting to me because I was really excited because they said it was going to scale faster and that it was going to be really challenging, but in the end, it turns out that it's actually significantly easier than trying to go Endless in a regular mission for an endurance run. For example, at Wave 100 in a regular defense, the enemies are going to be around level 1700, however, in an Elite Alert, they're only around level 270. This obviously makes it significantly easier for players, and I had a person in my Discord try to solo 100 waves in a regular mission, and they weren't able to do it for a challenge, but they were able to do it in an Elite Alert. Now, I know a lot of you argue that increasing enemy levels don't actually make the enemies any more challenging, and in some cases that's true. With certain combinations like Ivar and Covert Lethality or Octavia, the enemy level doesn't really matter all that much. However, for like 95% of the Warframe combinations in the game, enemy level really plays a big role in how difficult a mission is. But obviously, just increasing enemy level is not going to be nearly enough to get it to the point where it's challenging enough for a large variety of players, because obviously there's several ways that you can just completely cheese through certain missions regardless of what the enemy level is. So to address this issue, I'm going to kind of talk about my two ideas of skill in Warframe. First, we have mechanical skill, which is just how well you move throughout the game, shoot, dodge bullets, and how well you can cooperate in teams. For example, Destiny's raids, a lot of it is down to mechanical skill. So a lot of it involves coordination and shooting, but that's not so much what Warframe is. The really high-level content isn't so much mechanical skill. Instead, it's more of a skill based on game knowledge and adaptability. And so I'm going to classify this as basically the ability to use your understanding of game mechanics and game knowledge to adapt to the current mission. Basically theory crafting, optimizing DPS, and making new Warframe synergies and combos so that you and your team are in the most advantageous situation possible versus that particular enemy type in that particular mission. Now, unlike Destiny, Warframe happens to be heavily weighted towards the latter kind of skill set. If you have the right knowledge and you know how to optimize your DPS and you know how certain Warframes synergize with one another, you can go through whole missions just by pressing one or two buttons and absolutely obliterate the enemy. This is not what we want. We want to have a nice balance between mechanical skill and skill that's based on adaptability. So to further increase both of these requirements, first of all, what I would do is certainly obviously increase the enemy level. This increases how much adaptable skill you have and the skill that's required on just your game knowledge. But what's more challenging is increasing the amount of mechanical skill that you need. And to do this, I'll give an example of a modified version of survival that could be implemented into, say, Elite Alert system. So let's say you have a regular survival, but instead of just going and grabbing regular life supports that will supplement your total life support, how about much like in the Infested Hive missions where you have to stay close to the capsule to be able to survive. If you go outside of that bubble of the capsule, then you'll start taking damage, more and more damage, until eventually it just kills you. This would require you and your teammates to cooperate a lot more as opposed to just in a regular survival where you just camp in one spot. This also requires the team to move around because obviously once that capsule's gone, you have to move to the next capsule. Otherwise, you're going to run out of your life support bubble and you're going to die. Now, making the enemy levels higher and increasing the need for mechanical skill in Warframe is a step in the right direction. However, it's not enough so that it becomes challenging for players that actually know what they're doing. Newer players will have trouble with it, and it'll be good for them, but the more advanced players, again, it still won't be even remotely a challenge for them. So to further kind of address that issue, my suggestion is to implement nightmare modifiers and sortie modifiers into elite alerts. And how I do this is basically just every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, just add on another modifier and then switch the modifiers up every single week. And the really nice thing about this is that it starts to get really difficult for the high level players, but the players that are just trying to get into it and the players who are just new to sorties, they only have to go in like 10, 15, 20 minutes, right? But by the time you get to like an hour and you've got like 10 different modifiers stacked on top of each other, you're even like the really high level players are going to have a hard time adapting to that and thinking of ways to get around those particular modifiers for that particular week. And the other nice thing about this is that since the modifiers were to switch every week, you won't have one meta setup coming out and then that's the best meta setup for that particular whole mode, right? So it makes it interesting and keeps it varied every single week. It's like a new challenge that you have to overcome and think of and think about with your friends or either by yourself solo. Even this still wouldn't be an end solution because the reason you have such a lack of mechanical skill in Warframe is because of how stupid the enemy AI is, right? They pretty much just run to you and then you kill them, right? They just run to their deaths. They don't really, they don't dodge bullets. They don't do anything like that. If we had more varied and more intelligent AI that also ramp up the mechanical difficulty, which is what I think a lot of people have been asking for and what a lot of people are looking for. Obviously, this is going to be kind of hard to implement initially, and it's going to take a lot of time from the developers. So I'm not suggesting that right now, but later down the line, that'd be a good way to further improve upon what I've already said here. Now I want to talk about the other really big component when it comes to replayable gameplay, and that's the rewards you get for doing the challenging content. Now, arbitrations are a little bit weird in how DE went about setting up the reward system, in that they have rewards every 10 minutes as opposed to every 5 minutes. I don't think this was a good idea, mainly because if it's supposed to be the harder game mode, I don't know why you would get rewards half as often. However, their switch with it being, instead of AABC rotation and then going back AABC, it's now AAB and then CCCC and then C forever. I think that's a good system in that you get the best rewards for that tier at the end. Now, assuming they just made it back to 5 minutes, that'd be a step in the right direction. But not only that, it's the rewards that we get, they're not replayable, right? So if a particular game mode gives us a mod, right, as soon as we get that particular mod, then we're done playing that game mode. There's no other incentive to keep playing it, at least from a rewards perspective. So now the question becomes, how do we give these high-end players rewards that are actually relevant to them and they'll keep coming back to that game mode? As like I said, mods, they just don't cut it, and we've seen that in the past with arbitrations and Elite Sanctuary Onslaught. Now, there is one system that is actually relevant to high-level players that isn't so much to the lower players, and that's basically completely dominating trade chat today, and that's the Riven market. Now, the probabilities behind Riven mods are so absurdly bullshit that they deserve their entire own video, and I'll be going into that later. But essentially, the odds of getting the Riven you want are astronomical, and you have to go through trade chat to essentially get what Riven you want and the stats that you want on that Riven. Now, if there was a way to possibly obtain certain stats that you want faster through this system, or through a reward in a game mode, that would be a really good step in the right direction. That would be something that high-end players would really seek to do, because at this point, Rivens are the only thing that increase their power on their weapons any further. So I know other people have thrown this idea out in the past, but having, let's say, some kind of gear item that allows you to lock certain stats on Rivens when you roll them would greatly reduce the number of rolls you need to get the particular roll that you wanted, and also an ability to max out the stats on the Rivens, because if you don't already know this, not only are the rolls random, but also the values of the rolls are random. So you can have exactly the same Riven as somebody else, but their Riven might be higher rolled than yours, and so their weapon's going to be doing more damage. So a system that includes being able to lock certain stats on Rivens and then also being able to max those stats out on Rivens would keep veterans occupied for basically forever, right? There's 240 so Rivens in the game, and it's going to take you, what, 3 stat locks and 3 maxers or whatever to get the perfect roll on whatever Riven you want. Possibly 4 if you go 3 positive, 1 negative. Like that, right? That's a lot of time investment for what you need to do, and it's always increasing your strength, right? There's a limitless number of possibilities that you can do, and I know there's so many combinations I've wanted to try but haven't been able to because I can't get the roll that I want for that particular Riven. But the end goal, and what I'm just trying to convey here, is that the best way to get replayable content that matters, and essentially just trying to keep players playing the game, is you're going to have content that's challenging and rewarding for the player base. And what I've suggested is a realistic way, at least what I think to be a realistic way to get there. And I think it addresses most of the issues and concerns that people have about it. If you have any of your own ideas that you'd like to add on to this, please let me know down in the comment section below. Or if you disagree with something I've said, please let me know also in the comments, or even better, you can talk to me on Discord. I'm always on there and free to talk and happy to talk to people on mic. There's so many more things I wanted to say in this video, but I just didn't have the time to do so. So I really strongly suggest you join me over on the Discord, and we can all make Warframe hopefully a better game together. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.